I'm Shannon Paulus. My colleagues and I, we are the pre-service year 3 education students of University of Goroka, undertaking the course EDY Managing Behavior in Schools. Now, when it comes to behavior, there are certain factors that contribute to the behavior formation of a person, which then influences the person's action towards certain situation. One of the crises that is affecting our nation today is pickpocketing, and our discussion topic will be on pickpocketing in towns and cities of Papua New Guinea. As you can see, pickpocketing in towns and cities of Papua New Guinea is an ongoing issue and has risen drastically over the last few years that needs to be addressed properly at both national and local level. In our discussion, our second speaker will be Agatha Teisua. She will further describe pickpocketing. The third speaker will be Stanley Taxi, and he will provide insights into the negative impacts of pickpocketing does on both victims and perpetrators. The fourth speaker will be Quentin Simbimani. She will discuss the strategies to help change pickpocketing by stressing on some behavioral theories. And our fifth and final speaker will be Priscilla Philip. She will conclude our discussion based on the topic pickpocketing in towns and cities of Papua New Guinea.
Description of pickpocketing in towns and cities of Papua New Guinea is a negative behavior. Before we talk about pickpocketing, we have to understand behavioral formation, like how does a particular behavior develops, why certain individuals act the way they do. In simple definition, behavior is an action, a response, reaction, or a movement of a person or a group of people, while habit is the involuntary tendency to perform certain action which is acquired by their frequency repetition. The action of our habit becomes our behavior and is formed when a certain act is being performed frequently. A good habit is a positive behavior pattern, while a bad habit is a negative behavior pattern. For example, a good habit is asking permission before using other people's property or things, while a bad habit results when a person uses other people's things without asking them. And as the person continues to practice such habit over time, it becomes his or her behavior. He or she develops a behavioral pattern which lacks respect for other people's property without their consent is a bad habit, leading to pickpocketing, which is a bad behavior that is currently occurring in our towns and cities. Moreover, pickpocketing is a form of thief that involves secretly stealing items, basically wallets, phones, and other valuables from other people's clothing or bag without their awareness. Pickpocketing is an act that is done in a manner that avoids being seen and often occurs in crowded places like towns, main markets, PMVs, public motor vehicles, and it usually takes only a few seconds to execute, and successful pickpockets often possess a high degree of skill in a skillful movement of their hand, misdirect the people. To misdirect, they create a distraction. For instance, bumping into the target to divert attention and engaging the target in conversation or using a fake emergency to gain trust. Pickpockets happen in overcrowded areas where people are less aware of their surroundings. Thus, it is important to stay alert, using bags that can help keep valuables securely and avoid distraction. This can protect you and your belongings.
Pickpocketing in towns and cities of Papua New Guinea is an ongoing issue that has resulted in many negative impacts in lives of many people every now and then. Thus, as a result, towns and cities in Papua New Guinea is now becoming unsafe to explore. However, the act of pickpocketing has many negative impacts, which not only affect the victims but also the perpetrators and community or nation as a whole. Hence, the possible impacts that are likely faced by the victims are: number one, stress. Pickpocketing normally leads to the affection of victims' well-being in terms of physical and mental aspect due to more stress. Physically, it manifests headache, fatigue, digestive problems, sleep disturbance, change in appetite, and even increase the risk of heart disease, such as causing high blood pressure. Mentally, stress leads to anxiety, depression, irritability, and anger, and difficult concentration. Thus, these are the negative impacts that the victim of pickpocketing suffers due to stress. Two, economic impacts. This comes from two perspectives. A, individual loss. Pickpocketing usually results in loss of cash and personal valuable items and belongings, causing financial difficulties for the victim. B, business loss. A potential reduction in terms of business revenue like emerge due to deterring of tourists and shoppers that affects business indirectly. 3. Social impacts. The possible consequences of pickpocketing on individuals and society as a whole comes under social impact. A. Erosion of public trust. Frequent incidents of pickpocketing erode public trust in local law enforcement and security measures, leading to a sense of vulnerability and insecurity. B. Increased fear and anxiety. The constant fear of being victimized creates a stressful and anxious environment to residents and visitors alike. C. Negative impact on tourism. The increasing act of pickpocketing deters tourists and negatively impact the tourism industry that leads to downfall of the nation's economy. Since the potential economic enforcer in Papua New Guinea is the tourism industry. D. Cycle of crime. Pickpocketing contributes to a cycle of crime, particularly among youths who may tend to be thief due to lack of legitimate employment and opportunities. So these are the potential impacts that are likely faced by the victims of pickpocketing in towns and cities of Papua New Guinea nowadays. However, the negative impacts that are likely faced by the perpetrator of pickpocketing are: 1. Legal consequence. Pickpocketing is a crime in Papua New Guinea, and perpetrators face arrest, prosecution, and imprisonment if caught. 2. Financial penalties. In addition to imprisonment, fine is usually imposed to the perpetrator as part of their punishment. 3. Damage to reputation. Being a perpetrator leads to a damaged reputation within the community, making it difficult to find employment or build positive relationships. 4. Social stigma. Pickpocketing can be seen as a negative trait, and perpetrators face social stigma, making it challenging to integrate into society. 5. Difficult finding employment. Having a criminal record makes it difficult for perpetrators to find stable employment, further impacting their ability to support themselves. 6. Increasing risk of further crime. The negative consequence of pickpocketing leads to perpetrators to engage in more serious crimes, creating a cycle of criminality.
Before implementing strategies for managing that bad behavior, which is pickpocketing, we have to identify the underlying root cause. We have to understand why people behave the way they do and what's the driving force and then we can address the issue and provide measures to manage such behaviors. Habits are actions that we repeat most often and is literally fixed into our neutral pathways. There is this old saying that says, old behaviors are hard to break and new habits are hard to form. That is why most behaviorists believe that the behavior of a person starts as early as from the birth through to adult and old their age. That is why it is important to study how children grow, learn, and change in their respective environment. According to some behaviorists like John B. Watson and B.F. Skinner, human behaviors can be described in terms of environmental influence. Behavioral theories of a child development focus on how environmental interactions influence that behavior. This theory focuses purely on how experience shapes who we are and how we develop certain behaviors due to what we observe. Now, in the case of these perpetrators who does the pickpocketing in towns and cities of Papua New Guinea, may develop this habit in their early childhood. While witnessing such behaviors in their environment, so as growing up, they may observe situations where checking and stealing from their mommy's below is normal. And if they practice it, they are not being punished from such a bad behavior. In Vikat's cognitive development theory looks at how these thoughts process influence how we understand and interact with the world. With the perpetrators who does pickpocketing in towns and cities, they may come to realize that without legitimate employment and inflation, it's hard for them to survive in such an environment. So they resort in pickpocketing in order to provide for their basic needs. What should we do to address such behavior, which is pickpocketing in towns and cities of Papua New Guinea? The first one is at the local level, parents of today and future parents have to train their child with holistic approach. Parents should receive proper counseling from organizations such as the church groups and non-government organizations, for example, Save the Children and some other related groups. With the parents' proper knowledge on how to help so they can be a major influence on their child's behavior formation. 2. Government should look into ways as to provide employment opportunities for the citizens of Papua New Guinea who are not qualified to better employment opportunities. With the Papua New Guineans, we have natural resources such as the forest, lands and oceans and so much more that we can utilize with the help and support from the government to earn income and at the same time providing employment opportunities to the majorities and those perpetrators that does pickpocketing in towns and cities.
To sum up our discussion, pickpocketing is an ongoing issue that is affecting our country today. Well, one of the biggest questions we may ask, why do certain people behave the way they behave? Or why do people engage in such activities? Well, there are many factors that contribute to the development of such behaviors. We have identified two main ones, and the first one is lack of legitimate employment. Number two, observation of such behaviors. Most behavioral theory claim that behavior formation starts as early as 2 years of age and above. So with those involved in pickpocketing, they may have witnessed such behaviors as they were growing up. And now that they have grown, involvement in such activity is normal. What should we, as the government, as an individual, do to help manage such behaviors? At the government level, government should provide projects at a local level to engage youths to utilize whatever resources that is available, resources such as forest, land, sea. Now, as individuals, we also have a part to play. Each of us must take responsibility in our own actions, making sure we become good role models in terms of our behavior to the future generation, so that in the future, we don't have issues, behavioral issues. That's all, and thank you for watching.